Welcome to Real Talk with Dr. Dean. Today I want to talk about, can you prove God exists and what do you need to do that? So can you understand or believe in God spiritually, or is it a scientific thing? Does it have to be rational, or can it be both? And this is really important with people always debating about, can you prove God exists? You can't measure God, you can't see God. So how do you know if God exists? So the first thing is that we know I exist, you exist, and you're watching this video right now with your eyes that are very, very articulately, intelligently designed for you to be able to see me. So we see design everywhere around us, and we know from our own research, whether that's personal research or even scientific data, nothing can exist without a cause. So that's usually the argument that we make for having a creator. Someone made us, I didn't make myself. But what about spiritually? Because there's another aspect to all of this, is that our own instinct of the way that we think as human beings leads us to something greater, a greater power, a mightier being, and something infinite, ultimately powerful, which we call God or Allah. And that thing is natural to think about. Oxford University did research on that, and many academic papers on the innate natural nature of human beings to believe in a God. So when people say prove God exists, you don't need to prove God exists, you need to disprove it. So it's the onus on the people that don't believe in God to prove that God doesn't exist. We know we exist. We've been made. That's why we're here. The whole universe is incredible. Butterflies, rivers, mountains, currents in the air, currents in the ground. Everything works like clockwork. And we get the perfect weather. We get the perfect fruits and food and climates, ozone layer, protection. All animals have their defense mechanisms. We have our own immune system. All these systems have to be designed. So the onus isn't on us to prove God exists. For those that don't believe in God, they need to prove that God doesn't exist, because by default God exists. Somebody made this. Someone made this, rather. But if you don't believe in God, then you need to prove it. It's not, the onus seems to always be on the people that believe in God, prove God exists. I'm saying we don't need to prove God exists. You need to disprove it. So that's really where we should be coming from. We shouldn't be on the defensive. We should be on the nice, in a nice way, but offensive, in terms of God existing being the default way of seeing things. Now, what is the other way of seeing it? When I was talking about spiritual, rational, scientifically, the intelligent design argument, everything has been designed. We're learning things from animals. We call it biomimicry. So we learn the shape of a woodpecker teaches us how to design helmets for motorbikes that have 7 layers of protection. We learn about the fastest trains in the world are designed using the kingfisher's head. So we're learning science from animals. Where did animals learn it? They have to have a teacher. They can't teach themselves advanced metaphysics. They can't teach themselves engineering skills. So they have to have a teacher. So that's the other side of it. So I just want to talk about another thing, about the simplicity of believing in God. To believe in God, to believe in Allah, a creator, the simple fact is there was a monk called Occam's razor, is a theory by a monk, and he said that the simplest conclusion is usually the right one. So in simple words, to reach a conclusion on a matter, if there's a simple answer to it, or it takes less of a calculation to derive that, to get to it, and that's usually the simplest one. A really simple example, if I want to hold my ear like this makes more sense than me trying to hold it with this one. But anything that's the most logical, minimum layers of confusion, calculation to get to, that's usually the correct one. So when we calculate something and we do it in the shortest possible way, the easiest way to understand it, then that's usually the right one. So that's what his theory was in simple terms. It is much more complex, but I'm just trying to break it down. So if something is simple and it's more logical to understand that God exists, that there's a creator, then there isn't a God. So spiritually, if you look around, you reflect, and you ask God, and I always say this, if somebody has doubts, doesn't believe in God, ask God. Challenge yourself to say, oh God, if you're out there, show me. And you won't see God, but you'll see the signs of God. You'll see things happen in your life and you think like, how did that happen? Who did that? And that is God, that's Allah. That's the thing that we need to think about. So I don't think we should only use science on its own, because science is flawed. It changes. Theories change all the time. Results change all the time. New ideas come in science that disprove older ones. So we can't use just science, because science changes, it evolves, and we come up with new theories all the time. Then we say the old theory is invalid now. So science isn't definitive, it always changes. So this is why we can't just use science to prove God, although there is scientific evidence for God. There's even evidence for an afterlife and fate itself, which I'll discuss in other videos. So don't forget to subscribe. But I'll see you on the next one, guys. This is Dr. Dean's Real Talk. Assalamu alaikum.